Hello and welcome back to the Strawberin0 channel. Today I am reacting to S.T.A.L.K.E.R Shadow of Chernobyl review by Mandalore Gaming. Yeah, I sorta needed something short and sweet to upload on short notice, so this was my choice. I seen this is a pretty popular Mandalore video, probably because of how old it is. And since, I really love the S.T.A.L.K.E.R series, I wanted to just check it out and see what Mandalore has to say. Yeah, like the previous video with Gothic, I sorta also wanted to compare it to Seft style of review, which is more humorous and less talking about the game actually, and see how it holds up. Another also is that I read the comments, don't worry, I know that some of you, probably a lot of you who watch Mandalore want me to react to those other adventure games of his that he does on like Halloween. He goes through some really strange games and makes an extremely long format video about them. I will definitely go through them. I just need to feel the... I cannot do a lot of them in a row, I think, at this point, because I need to... YouTube will throttle my views if I don't upload at regular intervals. And those longer videos take longer to edit, longer to render, longer to upload, and so on and so on. So yeah, I need to push this in here real quick, and hopefully the next video will be one of those real long ones. There has also been a request for his latest videos, which is Stasis and Stasis something. I have no idea what those are. I would like, if there is popular demand, I will check it out sooner or later. Like, I read all of the comments. And I am thinking now about setting up like an email so that you can just send me video requests. But that's probably for later. For now, let's get into this video. And yeah, don't worry, if you requested something in the comments, I have not forgotten it. I am still doing the Warhammer Factions video, the long adventure game, like Halloween videos that Mandalore does. And I will check out like anything other that you requested, as long as as I find it interesting, because there have been some suggestions. Dragon Ball Z Abridged, for example, was suggested that I should react to it. I watched that series multiple times. I don't think like my reaction to it would be that entertaining, because I literally remember every single line that that is said in that Abridged. So maybe if they start releasing new episodes or something, hopefully, they get on that Boo saga. But that's enough of me rambling. Let's listen to Mandalore rambling about one of the most beautifully broken games with that irresistible just Soviet era charm and depression, and a lot of rust and gray skies.
This is Stalker. A lot of people consider it to be a cult classic, with good reason too. It's pretty compelling.
Oh yeah.
The thing is, I've heard an equal amount of people trashing this game and loving it. It's easy to see why it's treasured when there's many moments like these. But then things just fall apart. So why is this game still talked about a decade later? Well, I'll show you.
People who hate on S.T.A.L.K.E.R are completely wrong. There are junky games that don't work. Okay, if your criticism is that the game like crashes or bricked your PC or something, that's a valid criticism. But there are way fucking harder games to get into than S.T.A.L.K.E.R. Like, seriously. Fallout 1 is a good example. Fallout 1, I really disliked going back to it. It's aged terribly. S.T.A.L.K.E.R on the other hand, god damn, I cannot get enough of that game. Mostly because the shooting feels really good. And if you make a very, very solid first-person shooter, the fundamentals can just stay fresh forever. Half-Life 1 still plays very fucking good, for example. Counter-Strike 1.6, I don't have to explain to anybody in the audience, is still goated with the Souls. So yeah, Stalker, in my opinion, really holds up. It's just that obviously there's a lot of junk and there are some sequence breaks and, you know, crashes. The technical issues I
S.T.A.L.K.E.R is interesting in that
understand.
it's based both off a book and a movie. The original Russian novel Roadside Picnic came out in 1971, whereas the Soviet film loosely based off of it called Stalker came out in 1979. But before I get into that, I should give you the setting of the game. The first game takes place in 2012 Chernobyl, about 6 years after a second disaster occurred there. What went wrong the second time is a mystery, but the zone has become even more inhospitable. Reality itself seems to be breaking inside the zone of alienation. There are physics-breaking anomalies, strange creatures, and that's already on top of the radiation. At the same time, some items have been transformed into artifacts with strange properties. People are willing to pay a high price for these artifacts, so some will jump the fence and risk it all to steal them. There's also a legend of something being in the center of the zone that will grant a wish to anyone who makes it. Okay, so just how much of that is from the book or the movie? Well, all three have a zone, people break into it, and there's something in there that might grant wishes. And that's about it. You do have to keep in mind that these were made before the Chernobyl disaster in '86. Though one of the final scenes in the movie does have this look at a power plant. That's kind of spooky. In fact, quite a lot of visuals in the movie seem to have made it into the game. They're very different genres, but the visual inspiration's pretty cool. If I heard today that an old Soviet art film was being made into a game, I probably wouldn't be thrilled, because most likely it would be made by the Chinese room, be under half an hour, and probably suck. Now, the USSR State Committee said the film wasn't very good anyways. It's definitely slow, but I don't see why they'd be so upset about it. Uh-oh. Comparing it to the game, the book is a better fit. After all, it's the one that has the artifact hunters. But enough about the background for now. Let's talk about Shadow Chernobyl. You play as an unnamed stalker, which is the name given to the zone trespassers. Like most mid-2000s video games, you have amnesia. Your only guidance is a Palm Pilot telling you to kill someone named S.T.A.L.K.E.R and an acronym tattooed on your forearm. And that's it. Go wild.
Well, good hunting, Stalker.
Looking at the graphics first, Stalker's pretty good for a game that's a decade old. It's another one of those cases where good lighting can really help hide a game's age. Some of the texture work is just as good as stuff I've seen in modern games, though things like some of the character models and their animations show that, yeah, this is an older game. Jumping right into art direction, what really stands out to me is the environment.
I was about to say the environment's aged like fine wine. Like, holy shit, you can feel and smell this image. It's honestly pretty groundbreaking stuff for that era of game development. God damn.
Stalker is chock full of atmosphere. The weather effects it has impressed me even today. So even with all the older models and awkward animations, it still draws me in. Even in empty areas, the zone
Also nice bully music in the background. I would recognize that fucking tune anywhere.
just feels so surreal and otherworldly. So I love the look of the zone. Don't get me wrong, I really like some of the mutant designs and the exoskeletons look cool, but the scenery is just so immersive. It's a show stealer. The accompanying sound design is also pretty kick-ass. That could also be a big part of it.
It's funny how Stalker, I wouldn't consider it like a horror game or a scary game, but you can absolutely shit your pants because of the sound design. Like when you're going down a dark tunnel and you just hear those beeps of your minimap and like distant sounds of, you know, water pooling up at the bottom of some ditch, and you turn a corner and you just see out of the corner of your eye that something invisible just passed you, and you know that that a bloodsucker is about to attack you from behind. That shit can really put the fear into you like no other game. It's honestly kinda amazing.
So the immersion is killer, but what about the gameplay? It's gonna be a rough adjustment. Shadow of Chernobyl has some light RPG elements. There's a main storyline you can follow, but there's also lots of optional missions. Your rewards range between items and money. There's no experience bar, and there's no level up system. But this won't stop people from calling a Ukrainian shooter Russian Fallout. Anyways, your inventory is managed using a grid system, but there's also a carrying capacity. The more you carry over 50 kilograms, the less stamina you'll have for sprinting. If you hit 60, you go to a dead stop. So if you go full klepto and try to pick up everything you see, you'll run into problems pretty quickly. The game world is made up of interconnected large areas, so balancing your mobility with the supplies you need is important. Someone in a trade hub might be willing to buy all the heavy guns you found, but people in the field might not. So this forces you to put some planning into the supplies you'll take into the field. Plus, you don't want to go hungry. Now would be a good time to talk about the difficulty. A lot of misconceptions come from the game being so vague at times. The way difficulty works is the lower the difficulty, the less damage bullets will do across the board. This means you and your enemies will take more shots to kill. Though lower difficulty also means that enemies will have a harder time hitting you. Now I don't know how this rumor started, it might have been from a Giant Bomb article, but the gist is a lower difficulty makes the player character less accurate and their bullets disappear on hitting the enemy. This isn't true. But I see a lot of reasons why people accept this as a fact. The first weapon you get in the game is garbage. They might as well rename the Makarov to the Slavic Super Soaker with the amount of damage it does. Not to mention it's very inaccurate. So this is given to you when you're new to the game and still learning how to play, and it's awful. This footage here was me playing the game for the first time in about 3 years, and this is on the Master difficulty where the bullet damage is the highest. So if someone starts the game on an easier difficulty, they can dump entire magazines into the enemy. So if I had that experience and heard that your bullets just vanish, I'd believe it. You barely have any armor on top of that, and the weapons don't get much better until the next area. This game's probably made tens of thousands of bad impressions.
That's all very true, but like going for headshots is absolutely lethal on the highest difficulty in Shadow of Chernobyl. Like that first encounter, because it's a very specific barn where your first big encounter with bandits will be. Like wildlife is not a problem because they don't have ranged options, the ones in the starting areas, obviously. And once you clear that barn, the game becomes way fucking easier because you might get an upgraded pistol right there and there. And that makes a world of difference because then the game becomes like tough but fair. Like if somebody comes up to you and they get you from behind, you're guaranteed to die. But at the same time, in a fair firefight, if you're hitting your shots, the game will reward you. It's kind of like a risk-reward difficulty, which is pretty fucking cool. It's a very unique way to do difficulty in games. But yeah, that first encounter is goddamn brutal if you don't get lucky.
So as odd as it sounds, playing on the hardest difficulty will save you a lot of headaches. It's still going to be very challenging. So why would they design it this way? As harsh as it is, I think I understand what they're trying to teach you. It seems that they were trying to hammer in the fact that this isn't Doom and you can't run around with guns blazing. So the
You absolutely can if you're playing the highest difficulty.
starting area is filled with hazards to reinforce this. Let's start with the anomalies. You can spot them by the weird effects and by listening to your detector. Yeah, I think there's one nearby. If that's not enough, there are other clues, like spotting a dead animal out in the open. If you're really uncertain, you can toss a metal bolt. You have an unlimited supply of these, and that's a pretty good deal. This is especially good when you compare it to the movie. He only had about 3 bolts with cloth tied to them, but he had to go and get them every time. That would be rough. Most anomalies he had to worry about were time distortions. It was more about subtle use in sound design, whereas Shadow of Chernobyl's a little more dramatic.
How it feels to chew 5 gum.
So right from the start, you're thrown into the zone which is full of danger. But even with bad equipment, you have some tools to survive. Rather than fighting it out, sneaking is an option. There are indicators for how visible you are and how much noise you're making. So if you end up being spotted by an NPC, then the visibility marker will go up. So it could be wiser to run and hide rather than...
It's funny that the game gives you so much information about this, because sneaking is mostly just used to get you in better position in a firefight. Like, this is not fucking Far Cry. You're not going to stealth take down all of the guys in the camp. The most important thing is you will be sneaking to get into a better position. And it's sort of weird that they were this generous with giving you information on how to sneak around. Like, those are indicators I would expect in fucking Splinter Cell, a game all about stealth, you know.
Fight for the time being. The fact that Stalker doesn't use XP mechanics for its gameplay is beneficial to it. In another game, you'd want to be killing everything in sight to get your XP bar up, but because this game is difficult and your supplies are limited, you don't always want to fight. The dynamic nature of the AI means a decision can pop on you at any time. Let me elaborate on what I mean by that with an example. Let's say you run across a group of stalkers fighting some wild dogs. You can help them fight off the dogs and maybe make a new friend. But that can make the other dogs in the pack swarm to you. Even if you survive, this could waste all of your health kits and ammo. You could always kill the stalkers, but that could waste the supplies again. So you have the option of waiting for the dogs to pick them off and then searching their bodies for loot. This guy was even keeping a map to a stash. So by not helping, I got a supply cache marked on my map. So yeah, I essentially got some free stuff out of it, but now there are less stalkers in the area to help fight off the bandits. So this fight will be a little more challenging. The AI that the game has is pretty neat. For example, if you do enough damage to a dog pack or maybe kill off their alpha pseudo dog, they'll run off. One example that stuck out to me was killing a dog for a side quest, and then coming back to another dog eating its body. That's neat. So as the game goes on, you have this weird survivor's economy that starts forming in the back of your brain. Should I really take this fight? Do I really want to look for supplies in this absolute shithole? Do I want to waste ammo on that thing or run for it? If you had great supplies and plenty of ammunition from the start, you wouldn't need to think this way. Giving you a start where you're that underpowered is probably unfair, but man, it sure is effective. When you're improving your skill and getting better equipment, it feels like you've come a long way, but it's still going to be a challenge. One of the ways to make things easier early is the whole draw of the zone, the artifacts. You can equip 5 of them at a time. They have a wide range of both drawbacks and positives. Some might increase a damage resist, but decrease your overall endurance. The different effects of artifacts mean they balance each other out. But this is a hunt. Some might only appear in certain weather conditions at different times of day. Others are specially placed in locations. And no matter what it is, it usually sells well. Some of the effects are a bit vague. Like, I remembered there was a reason that I shouldn't use health artifacts, but I couldn't remember why. And then I remembered, oh yeah, that increases health regen, not your health bar. In fact, it makes you feel even weaker in combat. Increase the health percentage isn't very clear. So the system for being a stalker is great. It's kind of like playing a Pokemon game, except you're looking for Ukrainian hell rocks. As brutal as the beginning is, it's essential for teaching you how to play. Because before you get to the good stuff, you've got to start somewhere. For Shadow of Chernobyl, that somewhere is the bottom of the pit from The Dark Knight Rises. But I did mention that things can fall apart. As atmospheric and as good as the gameplay is, there's still a lot of issues. This isn't a game I would call polished. There are bugs like people getting stuck on walls or spawning inside campfires. There's also a funny one where people shoot out of the sides of their weapon. It looks like they're aiming away, but if they pull the trigger, you're dead. One of the more infamous side missions is killing a sniper for the Duty faction. The problem is he's usually dead by the time you go to turn it in, because he usually just stands his little hut getting killed by said sniper, but not doing anything about it. The zone claims another life. I'm not sure if this counts as a bug, but in one area where you had to go through, I had enemies spawn right on top of me. So then I had to spend a while popping in and out to kill them just so I could progress. It felt pretty cheap, but I didn't have a choice. I can only be glad that loading new areas only takes a few seconds. Stalker is also notorious for crashing, but I don't have any footage of it because some kind of miracle happened. I played through the entire game with both endings and it didn't crash once. I'm also playing this on modern hardware with Windows 10, so you'd think it'd be breaking more. I've had it crash before on other computers though, so I'm...
Yeah, this is just completely a lottery. I exactly had the same experience. Like, I played it on my older hardware that should have been better for Stalker, because the newer the hardware, the more problems you essentially run into. And I remember crashing a couple of times. It was really bad crashes with, you know, those ones where you didn't save for a really long period of time. And then I was replaying it on newer hardware and I didn't run into the same problems, so... Like, I don't wanna be one of those guys that says, you know, oh, it didn't happen to me. It fucking happens. It's just completely a lottery. Like, this is not a very well rounded off engine and game, and you shouldn't expect you should expect running into some technical difficulties at some point. Like, sadly, it is what it is.
I'm still gonna say it's probably unstable. A lot of people say the best way to play vanilla is to install the complete mod because it fixes all the bugs. Don't do that. The Complete mod comes with a lot of gameplay changes that make the game easier. Items like repair kits take away a lot of the scavenging aspect, so don't let them sell it to you as a fix, it's a mod. For a vanilla experience that stomps out a lot of bugs, look into the Zone Reclamation project. I didn't have it installed for this playthrough. Some of the bugs are alright.
Get out of here, Stalker. Get out of here, Stalker. Get out of here, Stalker.
I said come in, don't stand there. I said come in, don't stand there.
Despite all the bugs, it has enough little moments to draw me in still, but it won't be like that for everybody.
Меня простого контролера так еще никто не называл.
Without getting into spoilers, the ending of the game kind of falls flat. Strictly talking about gameplay, of course. I killed more people in the last 3 areas than I probably did in the rest of the game combined. It's less about survival management and just more of a battle. The environments it has you fighting in are less like the rest of the game and more like any other FPS game. It made me miss sitting in a bush drinking vodka to get rid of radiation. Plus, there's no more bandits. So if you want to skip story spoilers, go to here. Okay, you're good to go. The first twist is that you are S.T.A.L.K.E.R, which might have been a good twist if it wasn't the only other character by name they gave you. So it's a little predictable, but it's honestly not that important. After putting together clues you find in the zone, you realize that you had made it to the center of the power plant. Stalkers rarely make it that far due to the effect of something called the Brain Scorcher. The Scorcher turns most stalkers into mostly brainless soldiers. Since some can take multiple headshots, that might be more literal than I think. The others join a faction called Monolith. Their sole duty appears to be killing anyone besides them who approaches the center of the zone. So breaking it results in all the factions rushing to the disaster site. The military also launches an all-out offensive to retake the area, so you fight tons of Monolith. Those are bodies from just 2 rooms. When you make it to the sarcophagus, you see that the wish granter is real. There are 5 possible wishes you make depending on your actions in the game, so you don't get to choose, but they all have a very similar outcome.
This I thought was a very cool aspect of the game, where what you did during your playthrough or your end state decided what wish you got if you went with this ending, because there is another true ending. But that's a really cool, like, this is not a game that I would consider like a role-playing game where your choices matter, but it turns out it really near the ending it really delivered like an experience where your choice through gameplay kinda mattered more than in some games that really push that on you, that, you know, choices matter or whatever.
I want to be rich.
The wish granter is a monkey's paw, so any wish made has a tragic but ironic outcome. I think only the novel had a pure wish granter. The other 2 have some kind of twist to it. I wouldn't call the monkey paw twist terrible for the tone of the game, but the movie did things in a bit more of a clever way.
День дикобраз вернулся отсюда и неожиданно разбогател. Немыслимо разбогател.
Это что, наказание такое?
А через неделю повесился.
In the movie, the user's innermost wish is granted, so even though Porcupine came to the zone to help a dead relative, instead he ended up fabulously rich, because that was his true desire. So his ending was tragic out of guilt. S.T.A.L.K.E.R doesn't have enough character for that kind of ending, but that's okay because this is not the true ending.
I see you have many questions for me. Well, ask them, and then we can decide what to do with you.
Right. If you follow some clues instead of rushing off to the end, you'll learn about the true nature of the wish granter.
The monolith is true. All of it. It is just an illusion manufactured in a lab next to the sarcophagus. And nobody who reached the monolith has ever come back.
So after making preparations, you can enter a secret room in the Chornobyl power plant. You're gonna have to kill a ton of Monolith in very tight corridors. The second Chernobyl disaster and the zone itself were created by a group called the Sea Consciousness, or Common Consciousness. The radiation in Chernobyl deterred trespassers, which made it a perfect spot to experiment. They were experimenting on the noosphere, which is a bit of a complicated subject. It's a sort of living or psychological consciousness that covers the Earth like an atmosphere. It's not easy to define, and they messed it up, so their experiments caused reality to break down around the site. They built the Brain Scorcher to enslave stalkers who got too close. Their mistake was assigning S.T.A.L.K.E.R to assassinate himself, which messes up the process or something like that. They offer you a place because they claim they're trying to hold back the zone, but something doesn't add up. The Wish Granter is a final distraction to stop people from figuring out the truth, but when it's used, the zone expands by 5 kilometers. So either this is a plot hole or they're lying to me. Maybe I missed something, but I don't trust these people. I overall enjoyed the explanation. It hits a good balance. If you have a story with strange or fantastical elements, explaining too much can ruin it. But they didn't just throw their arms up and say, we don't know what happened. It's not really a character-driven story, and I know some people can't stand that, but I'm fine with it because it didn't end up being bad. Okay, let's wrap this up. Even with its messy side mission system and all of its technical blunders, Shadow of Chernobyl is still one of my favorite shooters. The setting and survival gameplay keep it going even 10 years later, even when the survival parts do sort of drop off at the end. And hey, if you're not too sure on the game itself, there's about 10 million mods to try out. Modders are still developing for this game, and with good reason. It's fantastic. Now, if you thought EVE Online was spreadsheets in space, the upcoming video is really going to make you reconsider that. I think that Aurora... wait...
I'm really sad he did not went deeper on the shooting, because the shooting is fantastic. Like, if you look at this game, when you play it, you think to yourself that this game almost doesn't deserve to be as fun as it is, but the shooting mechanics are really fucking solid. Like, seriously, the better shooters of the past 2 decades solid.
It's coming on PC in like a week? Oh no, this is messing everything up. Thanks for watching. I have some thanking to do.
Oh, he reviewed Vanquish too? I love Vanquish, that game is so fucking good.
Oh my god.
Zone claims another life. Yeah, that's everything from me. I look forward to some of those like longer form reactions, and I will see you always in the next one.